Welcome to the Succeed Against the Odds podcast. My name is Francesca Anastasi, also known as Sabea. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I'm your host and mentor. And each week we bring you an inspiring person, an expert, or message, and some behind the scenes to help you ignite and unleash your potential. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to another episode of the Succeed Against the Odds podcast. Today, as my guest, I have Paula McDade, who can best be defined as a multi-talented creative, a gifted graphic designer. Paula is the CEO of Stellar Creative, a boutique firm specializing in creative strategies for small businesses, individuals, and companies to help represent their brands with excellence. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad to be on.
Well, Paula, can you please fill in the blanks? Because I know I introduced you here very quickly and briefly. Can you just tell us a bit more about you, what you do as a graphic designer?
Absolutely. I like to think that I bring people's creative visions to life. Typically, when someone comes to me with a project, they want to have something designed, they have an idea, they have no clue as to where to start. And so I take them from the very beginning of the process of whatever their design project is, and I bring that to life. And usually they're thrilled when we get to the end and they see the finished product, because I've actually been able to articulate what they are thinking into real life, visual application. And so that is so rewarding for me. And that could be anything from a simple business card, a brochure, a website even. And it's so rewarding to take a person from, like I said, the beginning where they're not really even sure what they want, all the way to the finished product.
There's sometimes I think, having been in that position myself where I know I need something designed and I sort of have an idea of what I might want, but I can't quite grasp it. I know what the message I want to convey, or I know how I want people to feel when they see it, but it's so hard to explain it as a client to the graphic designer. This is what I want. This is what I'm trying to get. So your job is to extract that abstract pretty much and make it visual so that what they're thinking of comes to actualization. And as you're saying, it comes to life in a form that sometimes they don't even expect, better than they expected.
Yes. And typically, I love suggestions. And so if they give me just even a little bit to go by, I can take that and really expand on it. And like you said, make it bigger than they even thought it could be, or, bigger than life. And then the other part of what I do, I just recently got into publishing. And so I have a couple of folks that I'm working with to get their books self-published. I'm not a publishing house per se, but I can do everything from format the interior of their book to design the cover. And also I'm a writer as well. So I can actually sit down with them and coach them on, editing their story so that it's readable and so that the readers actually get the message that this person is trying to convey. So that's another division of Stellar that we recently jumped into. And I'm going to be launching a magazine actually. And I'm really excited. It's called Brilliant Awakening Magazine. So that's a new venture for me.
Congratulations on the new project. Always exciting to do something new.
Yes, absolutely.
So Paula, what inspired you to be a graphic designer? Was art always in your blood, or was something that developed as you got older, or is it something you've been doing all along?
As a child, I was very artistic. In elementary school, I could freehand draw just about anything I saw. And one of my favorite things to draw was cartoon characters. I used to draw Looney Tune characters. And eventually I started selling those drawings to my classmates. They would tell me their favorite, like Bugs Bunny. I want a drawing of Bugs Bunny. And I would do the drawing and then sell them. Actually, that was my first business venture in elementary school, probably about third grade. And so I was getting lunch money for selling my drawings. And I've always had a creative side. I've always been artistic. I was into music as I got older, played the piano. I sing, so I have a lot of artistic gifts. And it wasn't, I'll be really honest with you, I sat on that for quite some time. I went into the corporate world and started working as an administrative assistant and did that type of work for years. And it was, it could pay the bills, but I wasn't really fulfilled, I guess you would say. And so around my mid 40-ish years, when you start to question if you're really doing what your life's calling is supposed to be, that's when I discovered, hey, you know what? I still have these artistic gifts. I still enjoy these things. I would like to channel that into a business. And so literally that's how things started. I just, one day I decided to take what I love to do, which is design. I'd been doing it casually as a hobby for people. Hey, I need a birthday card designed. I need a flyer for our church picnic, and things like that. And eventually I said, wow, I could turn this into a business. And so I did just that.
That is such a common thing, Paula, where a lot of individuals who are super creative, they end up getting like corporate jobs and jobs that have nothing to do with the creative, possibly because they think there's no money or
Yeah.
actual income from the arts.
Yes.
And now that you know what you know,
Yeah.
you have a business doing this using what was your passion in the first place.
Sure.
If you
Yeah.
had the opportunity, now knowing what you know, if you had the opportunity to go back and tell yourself that you could do this right off the bat from the beginning, would you want to still experience going through the corporate and get that under your belt?
I think it did help being in the corporate arena, but I've also worked in nonprofit and I've worked for small businesses. So I've had a really well-rounded, I was telling someone that yesterday, I've had a very well-rounded career. And I think all of those things really helped shape the business person that I am today. I've done multi-level marketing, which is sales, which, that helped me learn different personalities and how to sell myself to people and how to be more confident in public speaking, because often I would have to make presentations. So I think all of the things that I've done in my career prior to starting the business actually helped shape me as a business person that I am now.
So it's basically business training in disguise.
Absolutely.
Like hands-on, right?
Yes. Yeah. Very hands-on. Yes.
Now, Paula, you are also a speaker, and I know that you talk about topics that are relevant to women in the areas of healing from trauma to and abuse. Is that
Yes.
something you're open to sharing more about? Yeah.
Absolutely. I started doing that sort of quote unquote by accident, I guess you would say. I was at an event and they asked if anyone had, something they wanted to share about themselves, about their past, something painful that they had gone through. And I found myself sharing my story of being sexually abused as a child. I was molested by a family member from about the time I was 8 or 9 years old up until I was in my teen years. And because of that experience, of course, that caused a lot of different negative effects on me emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. And so after I shared that in that group of women, I just found myself going, wow, your story is really powerful. You should probably share this more. It sort of gave me some courage and some fuel because I got a lot of positive feedback after I shared my story from other women who had gone through similar, things. And so I took that and decided to turn it into a speaking career, if you will. And so it has been extremely rewarding to help other women realize that, they're not alone, that no matter what their trauma is, whether it be abuse or, going through a traumatic divorce or struggling with mental illness or whatever that might be, I just feel that it's so empowering to open those doors and allow the sun to shine in on something that may have been shameful at one point, but seeing that, okay, you've made it to the other side of that experience. Now it's time to heal. And now it's time to, once you heal, you can then use your voice to help uplift others who have gone through similar experiences. So that's kind of how that started.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, not only here in this episode, but through your speaking, because I think that is a vital component of creating change,
Yes.
not only to provide comfort and healing and hope to the people who have gone through similar experiences, but also to start creating awareness of maybe even helping people recognize the signs before the abuse actually happens.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
I'm a strong believer. I don't know how much you know about what I do, but one of the things I do, I'm a very strong advocate against abuse, like a lot of
Yes.
women are, and well, and men as well. But like the women seem to be in a higher spectrum of statistics as
Yeah.
the recipients of abuse. The stats for men are pretty high too, so I'm not negating that whatsoever. However, I find that it's so important to recognize those signs. And if we
Yeah.
don't share our experiences, it's impossible to help others, to help prevent others from falling the
Mhm.
same thing. And I think that's what the silence does.
Yes, absolutely. Prevention is like one of my big things. As a matter of fact, part of what I want to do is eventually start to go around to different schools and talk to young people about this issue and how we can start preventing some of this and how it's okay to tell someone, and not keep it to yourself. I think had I had someone come to me and say, it's okay, I'm a safe place. You can talk to me, and I will protect you. I think that the abuse would have stopped a lot sooner than it did. But because it was allowed to go unchecked and I felt ashamed and didn't want to share with anyone, that's why the duration was so long, because it hadn't been exposed.
Right. So did you deal with that when you were at this event where you said if somebody was willing to talk about their story and you shared yours, was that the pivoting point for you as far as coming to terms with what had happened, or
Oh,
had
no.
you had already worked on that?
Yeah, by the time I even got the courage to openly, publicly share, I'd been through several hours of counseling and even outpatient treatment for the mental health side of that, because it does have a huge impact on you, on your mental health as well. I'd gone through several hours and sessions of just digging underneath the surface of all of that and unpacking it and going through the emotions and even forgiving my perpetrator who caused the abuse. And so for me, it was something that I'd already kind of done the work on, and I felt ready to now share it with others.
So did you find that it affected your work while you were still dealing with it?
It did. I spent lots of years in depression, dealing with anxiety disorders. PTSD is a part of the whole trauma package. And so all of those things I took a toll, on my just my everyday life, on my parenting, on my marriage, on my sex life, just everything. It affects all areas of your life. And that's why it's so important to deal with it with a mental health professional who can really walk you through the process of, you know, dealing with it. Because if not, you could go through the rest of your life being affected and not even realize it.
And I'm glad you shared that. And thank you for sharing, the more details on this.
Yeah.
I think it is so important for everyone who may be going through something similar where they've experienced abuse or they're dealing with PTSD and they're depressed and they can't figure out why they can't move on. It is so important to seek help and get that support like you did. You went to counseling.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
without that, you can't do it by yourself. You just can't.
You can't. And it's such an isolating thing. You want to just go into a hole and hide, but I was forced out of hiding. I could not continue on the way that I was going because the depression and anxiety had gotten so severe that it was affecting my performance at work. I was taking more sick time off, and even when I was at work, I wasn't performing well, and it just started to affect every area of my life. And so I could not ignore it any longer. Thankfully, I was in my mid 20s when I started to unpack all of that. So I got a good head start on it. But some women, I talked to a woman one time after I spoke at a church, and she was almost 70 years old. and just acknowledging that this had happened to her as well.
It's a very common story. I mean, 1 in 3, those are the statistics. Pretty sad. And I'm hoping that more and more of us come out there and start talking so we can change those stats.
So do I.
And we're talking about now, but like you said, this happened when you were a child. So when we say, women being abused, a lot of this abuse happened in childhood, not as an adult.
Yes.
Yeah, something to really pay attention to, right?
It is.
Okay, so let's get back to business.
All right. Awesome.
Let's change the topic here and the mood a little bit. You're a graphic artist, as you explained, and now you're getting to publishing and helping people with their books. What would you say has been, since you've had your business, the biggest aha or the biggest learning in the process of having your business?
Oh, wow. There's so many. How do I choose which one? The first thing, people just assume because they have a great idea that automatically that qualifies them to run a business. And I can tell you that is so not true. There's so many different things to learn as a business owner. Everything from the bookkeeping end to the marketing piece to customer relationships and to sales. And then you throw technology on top of that, and it's really like overwhelming at times. And so having a good support team is vital. A support team of individuals who can help you navigate those different areas and support you as you delegate, because you can't do it all yourself. So you need extra people to come aboard and work in their area of strength so that you can do what you need to do. And to not be afraid to bring those people on board and utilize them. So I think that's probably been the biggest aha for me, for sure.
Well, that's a great aha, because I think many of us women tend to have that, I'm going to do it all. I don't need anybody's help. No one's going to do better than I syndrome. And like you said, it's not just about supporting us with people around you, but to get the people who are experts in their area, so that you don't have to do it all, because you can't do it all and you're not going to be good at everything. That is so important. I'm glad you shared that.
Definitely. I know, sometimes we need to hear those words. We need to hear that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to get support from someone else. You don't have to do it all yourself. Even if you think you could do it better, or you're the one that should be handling it. That feeds our ego, but it won't feed our pocketbooks. So we have to be prepared for that.
So when you started, did you start right away with a team, or did you start by yourself? And
solo all the way. Definitely, at first your cash flow isn't what you'd like it to be. So you have to kind of wear all the hats yourself. So as I became more versed in what I'm doing and got more comfortable with things, I realized that I couldn't continue to go on the way I was going without a team. So I've added 1 or 2 folks here and there. I've used people sporadically, periodically, just on a contractual basis, and then I've used some of the outsourcing services like Fiverr and some of the other popular services that are out there where you can just get a person freelance, on the side to do a project. So I've tried lots of different ways to help support my work, and they've all been working pretty good for me. So I think I've kind of learned how to do the delegation thing a little better than at first. And I have a little more capital to work with now. So that makes a difference as well.
Good point. You shared that your team is not necessarily a full-time team, where a lot of people have this impression. A lot of people that think about business and haven't started business, or they are doing it all themselves. They don't realize you don't have to necessarily hire somebody full-time, that you can get casual hours in exchange for expertise. Like you can do that.
And I'm very creative. I am very creative when it comes to getting help. I've even had interns, unpaid interns who maybe just starting out in an industry and they want to get the experience, but they can certainly do menial things that maybe I don't have time to do. I've bartered for services. So there's so many different ways to support your business without not necessarily having to spend a lot of money maybe. And bartering is a great way. And also internships are a wonderful way to make that happen.
And that's a good exchange too, because you give experience, hands-on experience in
Yeah,
exchange for that help. So
absolutely.
going back to when you were young and you were drawing your cartoons, the Looney Tunes, did you have a wish of what or an idea of what you wanted to be when you grow up?
Oh yeah, I had about 5 different things I wanted to be when I grew
That's
up.
the creative.
Yeah. So one of them was I wanted to be a news anchor. I also wanted to be a dancer because I don't know what it was about those two industries that just appealed to me. And those were kind of fantasy jobs that, ooh, in an ideal situation, this is what I would want to do. I don't think artist was ever in there though. I just thought art was just a part of who I was. I didn't realize that you could take that and turn it into a career or a business because I had never seen anyone like myself do that. I just didn't have any examples in front of me, to point the way. So it wasn't something that I felt like I could turn into a career. I wanted to be a secretary like my mother. She'd always worked in nice offices, had her own desk and typewriter. Back then it was typewriters, and so I wanted to be a secretary. So yeah, and a school teacher. Let's not forget that. My grandfather, as I was growing up, he would always call me his little school teacher. And so I wanted to be a school teacher too. So those are just a few of the things I wanted to do.
Well, a dancer is creative,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
right?
I think teaching is creative, you
And
know?
teaching is too, and teaching and speaking, they kind of go along the same lines. And you're a
Sure.
speaker, so
Yeah,
I totally see that you're kind of living what you were hoping, part of
sure.
it anyway.
I feel it. I feel like that. Maybe not the dancing part, but I can certainly dance in private at home to my music, and there we go. I'm just as happy.
And that's all that matters.
That's right.
So, as a business owner now, do you have any other big plans? I mean, you already have lots going on. Do you have big vision coming like down the road of something even bigger?
I'm wide open for whatever is waiting for me down that pathway. And I try to remain open because I know that there are surprises waiting around the corner for me if I will just stay in that posture. And I think that's what we do. Sometimes we close ourselves off from the amazing opportunities that lie ahead of us because we want to plan everything down to the T and we want to get it, we want to have our 5-year plan. Not saying that we shouldn't, but I'm also really curious to see what is waiting for me, creatively down the road. I have no idea what that might look like, but I know that there's something amazing there. That's how we even got to the magazine part because I wasn't planning to start a magazine. I really wasn't, but it was presented to me as a possibility within my heart and within my mind. And I said, you know what? Why not? So here we are. So yeah, I think there's good stuff waiting. I'm not sure what that looks like. I don't particularly have any huge overarching, things that I have planned. But again, I'm a woman of faith and I believe that there are some amazing things that lie ahead for me. I'm just not sure what that looks like just yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the creative. Sometimes as a creative person, is I work a lot with, helping my clients have their vision and work towards a vision in their business. And I find that with the creative, because there's so much creative in the brain,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that it's almost impossible to have just one, because it's one vision, because it's always a moving target. There's always something else that comes up. And it's
Yes.
almost better to especially when you're using your passion in your business, I
Mm-hmm.
find that the vision develops by itself, step by step. That things
Yes.
like they're happening for you, they just reveal themselves to you
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
you're already in your passion. If
Yeah.
you were not in a business that you were passionate about, you wouldn't get that.
I know I wouldn't. If I were just determined to work a 9 to 5 and just, which by the way, I still do work a 9 to 5, but if that was my only thing and I didn't have this other passion, purpose business that I'm working in, I know for sure that it would just be clock in, clock out, go to work, come home, cook dinner, go to bed. It would just be that mundane routine. But Every day of my life is literally an adventure because of my business. And I'm so grateful for that. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
I love it.
Yeah,
Business is an adventure. It's a daily adventure.
it is. For
That's what
sure.
makes it exciting.
That's right. That's what keeps me going. That's what, makes me not quit and give up, because I'm like, I wake up and go, okay, what's it going to be today? And literally it is just truly an adventure. And I like to challenge myself. I like to do things I've never done before. So this magazine has certainly challenged me. I've never published a magazine before, and it's not the same as publishing a book. It's totally different. And so I've had to up my game a little bit, and study things that I didn't know before, study software that I wasn't familiar with, and, learn how to format a magazine. So all of this is brand new to me, and it's really exhilarating to go through the process and learn new things and conquer those new things and go, yes, I rock, So,
Hmm. And
yeah,
it's important to do that, to acknowledge your own achievements and
sure.
your skills and the things that you're doing well. It's important to do that.
Yes.
So what's the magazine about?
So the magazine is actually stories of women who have gone through adversity, who've gone through challenges, much like myself. Not all of the stories are the same. We have everything from, women who have gone through, major divorce situations to teenage pregnancy, mental health challenges, physical health challenges. We have so many amazing stories. And so that's what we're featuring in this issue is the stories of these women. And they're all amazing. They all have something very relevant and very important to say. And it is my privilege and honor to feature them in this inaugural issue of the magazine. And they're all super excited as well.
So how did that come up? Like, how did the whole magazine idea come up?
I did an anthology prior to this. I released an anthology called The Brilliant Awakening. It was a book of stories compiled from individuals who had gone through the same challenges, struggle, adversity, and different things. And there were 19 women in that book. And so as I was finishing the project, I said, okay, so what's next? We've done the book. The book is finished. It's being printed as we speak. And I was already trying to conceptualize what was next. And I said, okay, so we're going to do the next step is a magazine. We've done the book. So now we're going to take it to the next level and do a magazine. People don't typically expect a magazine anthology. And truly that's what this is. It is a collection of stories, of narratives of women who have experienced those major breakthroughs in their lives and come out on the other side. So that is how the magazine came about.
Beautiful. So it
Yeah.
kind of one thing like to the next.
Yeah.
Naturally, it
Exactly.
organically went that direction. So Paula, you're not just a graphic artist, you're an inspirational person, like you're sharing your story, doing this book, doing this magazine to share other women's stories. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to reach you?
Well, they can always email me at contact@stellarcreates.com. That's one way. They could also visit the website at stellarcreates.com. It's pretty simple. I try to keep everything very uniform. And that's our home on the internet. And that's where you can find out information about the company, about what we do, how to connect with us, how to be a part of the anthology or the next magazine. And so contact@stellarcreates.com or stellarcreates.com is our website.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today, for sharing all that you've shared. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on. It has been amazing, and you're an amazing host.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please pass it on, and it would mean so much to me if you would leave an honest review on iTunes. I'd really appreciate it. Till next time, embrace your magnificence.